Welcome to the Forging Podcast, where our mission is to forge guys into godly husbands, fathers, men, and leaders in their communities. We push out of our comfort zone, face our fears, and grow stronger every day. We strive to be selfless providers, dangerous protectors, loving husbands, fathers, and friends. I hope you all enjoy the podcast.
You know, good leadership is selfless. And nowadays, it's the opposite. Everybody wants to get into that leadership because of what they can do for themselves.
Man.
And that's the opposite of good leadership.
Yeah.
It's like our president stuff. It's all about getting elected and what you can do for you and your family or this or that. And that's terrible leadership,
Yeah.
And that is true for all cases of leadership. Whether you're in a company, you see it terrible in companies. Mid-level management is a joke.
Yeah.
Usually. Now, in our families, leading in our families, you go back to that. If you're a leader, to be a good leader, you need to be selfless.
Yeah.
And you put what you want, maybe not always your needs, because you have to take care of yourself too.
Yeah.
But you put your desires and your wants should be last, stuff that you don't need. You know what I mean? Like, for me and my family, the way this works out practically is if we're out and about or whatever, and where are we going to eat? I literally don't care. I eat because I need the calories. I don't really care that much. Now, I enjoy a good steak or whatever, but
hallelujah.
If once that comes up, it's where do you want to eat? First thing I say is I don't care, and then you get into I don't care either.
Yeah,
Good grief. That's why I told my wife I there's something at every single restaurant that I want.
Yeah.
Okay, McDonald's it is. No.
So,
double quarter pounder.
We get into that.
Yeah.
And there comes a time here, like I'll tell Courtney all the time, I'm literally the only person in this vehicle that really don't care. So y'all go through what y'all don't want. And then if it comes down to it, I'll make a decision where we'll go.
Yeah.
And that's the leadership,
Yeah.
Once I choose,
Yeah.
where we're going.
That's it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, my Courtney is a pretty finicky eater, so we usually start with her. Well, what do you don't want, and then we'll ask the kids, and if we can't come to anything, me and Courtney have a discussion between us, and if I have to, I usually don't, but if I have to, say, well, we're going to wherever.
Yeah.
Subway or whatever,
Any.
What's wrong with Subway? Good gosh.
It's
He's got a you say a word and he's got a complaint about it. Okay?
yes.
This
I
guy
do.
will argue, and I mean, he will argue.
You say birdseed and just go,
Oh my gosh.
I don't care about birds.
It's actually a sunflower seed. It's like nobody cares, Jared. It's
Look,
not
I'm
that
not,
deep,
I'm
okay?
not that bad. Not that bad.
You're pretty bad.
I can be.
You are.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
yeah, but you talking about the selfless and, leading by example, I mean, and Jared, you were hitting on that, the leading by example. I know y'all hammered this verse, where it seems like you couldn't get any more mileage out of it, but that's the beauty of Scripture is that it's a well that never runs dry. So even back in Ephesians 5, where it's talking about husbands, it's verse 25, husbands love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her.
Mm-hmm.
That's selfless when we put ourselves on the back burner.
Yeah.
When it's not all about us and it's not all about that, I'm in charge. I'm the one doing all this, and everything. When we put ourselves back, that's what true leadership is.
Yep.
When we put their needs above our own wants, usually not even above our needs, but above our own wants. When we lose that selfishness that we have, that's when we can truly start leading our family, and not even meaning that, well, you get what you want and I don't get what I want. It's that, no, especially with the small kids, what you want right now is actually bad for you.
Yeah.
And so you don't understand that right now and you're upset. But I also have to be able to look past your whining and look past your tears and see what is good for you
What's
in the
good
long
for
run.
you? Yep.
And
Stop
stick to
eating
that.
paper.
Yeah.
Stop eating paper.
Or glue.
Or glue.
You needed
Stop
the
it.
fiber, okay?
Yeah. But yes.
That is a great point, and you're right. We have hammered that verse, but that is a great verse.
It's so important.
Yeah,
I
there's
mean,
so
that's-
much right there in that verse.
Yeah.
And, what I said a minute ago, not your needs. Sometimes you'll find yourself in a situation where you do have to put your needs on the back burner.
Yeah.
It don't need to be for an extended too long
Yeah.
because you do have to take care of yourself. Because sooner
Man.
or later you'll get down so bad that you're not doing anybody any good.
Yeah.
And someone listening to this may be in that scenario
You
where
may
it's
be.
like they need to skip a meal
Yep.
so that their kids get one.
Right.
Ooh.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Sorry, kiddos.
But
Fatty
there
wants
are
to go,
times where you'll have to put I've went through them, where you'll have to put your needs aside and sacrifice your own self for the good of somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's
that's-
not what that verse is talking about, where it says, "As Christ loved the church and gave Himself
Right.
up for her."
Yep.
It's like
Exactly.
you do have to give yourself up.
That's
Yeah.
why I wanted to say that, because I said,
Yeah,
not your needs, but sometimes in some situations it will be your needs.
yeah,
Yeah. And that's, with that, you do have to get back to what your needs are. And an important thing that's helped me a lot too, like I said before about how we had our men's breakfast and we met at Jack's this time, and because it was raining out and we couldn't cook outside, because we usually do it at the church and we cook outside. But it started at, what time did we get there? 8?
8:00.
8 o'clock, and it was 11 o'clock before we left. The fellowship time that we had, just the different things that we talked about, and the ideas that we kind of passed around, and it goes back to your iron sharpening iron. Like, I don't know. I guess for me, it helps. I've been studying some topics that mean a lot to me, and eventually we'll talk about them. But I was able to kind of talk with the other men about some of the things that are on my mind and on my heart, and help get more clarity or just a different perspective. And that can go into how to lead your house, how to lead your business, if you're talking with businessmen, or just dealing with your own personal struggles. Like, we have things that we need to take care of on our own, or about ourselves, not necessarily on our own, but about ourselves, that, for me, studying and getting in the Word and spending more quality time with God has softened my heart and softened who I am more, to where I can lead better, and getting outside counsel from other men that are achieving those things or working on achieving that as well. So that's important. You've got to surround yourself with good men. If you're trying to soften your heart and learn how to lead your family properly, you don't want to go to a dictator and learn how to do that, because you're going to go the opposite direction of what you're trying to do. So you find other men that you see are leading their households good,
Right.
and have a good, healthy relationship with their wife. And, some people put on a show out in public, but you can sometimes read through that. How the kids interact with them, how the wife interacts with them. If they're putting on a good show in public, you're still going to notice some inconsistencies. So find somebody that, if your heart's in, I really want to start doing better in this area, find somebody that you feel is doing that, and just lean on them and see what they have to say. And that's your personal growth and health as well. It's just,
Because just as your family follows you by you leading by example within your household, you find somebody to teach you who can lead you by example. You see that man that's like, hey, that's my goal right there. You know, that's something that because I've been blessed to have that.
Yeah.
You know, I think of my buddy Chris from Memphis, who's just was just a powerhouse for me when I was a kid, because like he was my friend. Like he was a friend that was helping out with the youth group that I was in when I was a teenager. But I saw in him, you know, a picture of the kind of man that I wanted to be
Yeah.
later on, you know. And so, and all he did was just invite me in to be his friend. He didn't try to, he didn't try to be this other father figure or anything like that. You know, I was closer to his kid's age than I was to his oldest son. His oldest son was just, I don't know, maybe 4 years younger than me, something like 3 or 4 years younger than me. But I was friends with him, though. I was friends with that kid's dad, you know?
Yeah.
And he just invited me in, and I was able to see like a man who it's like, that's how you love your wife. That's how you love your kids. That's how you strive, you know, but perfect by no means, but that's how you strive to live a godly life. And like, so we've got to do that within our own households too. Because even going back to like kids interrupting.
Yeah.
I think about like, because this has happened several times, you know, and I'm glad that my wife has done it, where I'll come into the room and like sometimes your kids are just always making noise.
Yes.
You know, you don't really.
Yes.
It's like you don't really. It's like it's almost just background to where it's like you don't even think about it. And so pretty much I walk into a room and just go and command my wife's attention. You know, and like, hey, Bridget, and start talking to her about something and everything. She's had to say, hold on. You just interrupted Lael. Lael was telling me a story. Everything. It's like, so that example of, it's rude for the parents to interrupt you too. It's and then the kids can see too, like, I don't like being interrupted. Therefore I don't need to interrupt my parents too.
Yeah.
You know, so that just,
So leading by example.
and finding that, like,
I'll interrupt an
You're
argument.
a kid.
you get that example of like, I lead that way in my household, but I need to find men outside of my household that are being those leaders already, so that we can, and then therefore we can just keep the chain going, where somebody else is looking at us going like, that's who I see something in them and I want that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a good leader can take correction and guidance.
Yeah.
I mean, a
Constructive
leader
criticism.
doesn't mean you know everything.
Yeah.
Every
You know when
leader
to
is still
apologize.
learning. Yeah.
I've apologized to my kids
Yeah.
about certain things.
Yeah.
And in the hopes too that they see like, hey, you know, as much as they might look up to me and stuff, that they see that like, okay, Daddy's not perfect.
Yeah.
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 And that hopefully they'll see my example of apologizing, and they'll know like, hey, you know, it wasn't too good for my daddy to apologize, you know, so I can too. You know,
That's
when I'm wrong.
another attribute of a good leader is the humility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what y'all are describing. That's what y'all are hitting on, is being able to say, I was wrong. I'm sorry. You know, I'll do my best to do better.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because too many times we're going to get prideful and be like, well, suck it up. You know, it is what it is, kind of thing. And it's just a simple thing of saying sorry.
Well, I'm
And
the
it's like,
dad,
man.
you know.
Yeah, I'm the dad.
I'm the leader of this household.
Yeah.
And so when I come in, I'm respected. You know, and it's like you come in demanding it, you know, instead of commanding it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man. Yeah, that's something that I've had to learn the hard way.
Most of us learn it through the mistakes. I mean, that's why you end up with the apologies, you know.
Yeah.
Hopefully it leads to the apologies,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And hopefully it leads to learning, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's, you know, that's a topic too that I want to talk about eventually is leading our communities. And, you know, this all starts in our household. And if we can, we ain't going to get it perfect, but if we can work on it in our house and figure it out here, then we can take it out and really start carrying it out. And people are going to notice, they're going to notice that you're somebody that can stand behind. You're a solid person. You lead your family properly. And I think, trying to think of where it's at in the Bible, even being like a deacon in the church, you have to have certain,
It's in one of the Timothys, I think.
yeah,
I
you
remember
have to have
which one.
certain things that you have to do to even be able to be a deacon in the church. And it's a sense of accountability, I guess, or
And one of them, I think, specifically manages his household
Yeah.
well.
yeah,
You know, and so it's kind of like, well, how are you expected to, you know, manage and care for the
community
brotherhood and the
and the
household
church,
of God
yeah.
if you can't do it within the own walls of your home?
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, exactly.
But that is
That's just me
getting
moving around.
so
Like,
lacking
yeah.
that you don't even have enough people in the church that are qualified to be deacons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
enough people who even will self-disqualify themselves just because of some failures.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
instead of saying, and instead of like realizing that I'm on the path of forgiveness, like I've asked for forgiveness, I've repented, I've tried to correct those things within my family, and we'll read something like that and think, oh no, I didn't manage my household well for a time, and
Yeah.
therefore I'm disqualified from this. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, no, you're actually more qualified because your house was in a state of chaos at one point in time, and you handed it over to God and got it reined in, and to the point of obedience to where it's
Yeah.
like you do have it. It's like if you're in the middle of the chaos, no, it's probably you probably don't need to be focusing
Yeah.
on
Mhm.
managing the church. You need to be focusing on managing your
Managing
household.
yep.
But if you've surpassed that, don't disqualify yourself because of past failures.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
if failure is the thing that disqualifies you, then none of us are qualified
That's
to do
right.
anything.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I feel like we covered that one pretty good, right?
I guess.
Let's gotta go pee pee.
What? Say it louder, Brett.
But yeah, so I don't know. I felt that was important because too many times we see households just kind of chaotic, and really the parents are so self-indulged with their wants and cares that the kids are neglected, or even just, you know, once again, it goes back to, well, if I put my kid in front of this screen, then I can go do what I feel like doing and not have to sacrifice myself and my wants for them. Like,
And in our culture, it comes back to that selfishness. You know, it's
It
like
really
I want to
does.
give my kids screens so that I can get back to my screens.
yeah,
That's,
yeah,
so often that's what it comes down to. It's
Yeah,
like I
absolutely.
want more of my screen, and the answer to that is the kid is very distracted by it when I give them a screen. So if they're on their screen, they'll leave me alone while I'm on my
Yeah.
screen. You know,
And for
it's
me-
so toxic.
for me, you know, and you do need that personal time for your own health. You do need, but for me, like, I'll send my kids outside.
Yeah.
It's funny
And we need
how
healthy personal
creative.
time.
Yeah, it's funny how creative kids get if you just let them be without the screen, without all
Yeah.
the things telling them what to do and not to do, and
It's the imagination that a lot
Yeah.
of kids have lost because of screen time. Like,
yeah, it's like my dad left a 2-wheel dolly over at the house, and I remember as a kid, he's had this thing forever. I mean, it's aluminum framed with hard wheels. I mean, I think it'll be around for another 100 years. It's just one of them well built dollies, and so I remember as a kid getting in the handle area. You know, it's big enough for a kid can fit in there, and then my sister or my brother would sit on the scoop part.
Yeah.
And then we'd be a horse and buggy kind of thing. And we'd walk all over the yard and play. Well, now, I never taught my kids this, but they're out doing the same thing.
Oh man, that's awesome.
It's hilarious.
That's great.
And
Shoot, I was jumping around on a trampoline,
yeah,
playing with lightsabers. I was.
lightsabers.
We were getting toy guns, and we'd make up
Yeah.
like war scenarios, and we pretend like the hitch of the trailer was like a jet, and like the little
Nice, yeah.
the
Joystick.
jack on the front
Okay.
was like the little yoke that you
That is
fly around
sweet.
on, bro.
Yeah.
That's genius.
Tell you,
So,
it's
I mean,
just-
but-
a lot of kids have just lost their imagination. Like they just kind of stand there and don't know what to do because their brains have been melted by all this technology. Like they
And they'll
just
call you like an old fogey for saying stuff like that. It's
Which
like,
is-
oh yeah, like, but it's just it is the truth. Is like I went outside and played as a kid, and like we had even you were talking about outside toys earlier.
Mm-hmm.
We had very few outside toys. Like I mean, like we had bikes. It
Yeah.
was like maybe the extent of our outside toys. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
a couple of toys we were allowed to take outside and stuff. But you know how many sticks? Like
Dude,
Oh,
you'd
man.
be
It's like,
surprised what a
that is
stick
the
can turn
best
into.
Gun
Yeah.
stick I've ever seen, and that
Bruh.
stick was a gun. And then you'd find some that was like it had the perfect hilt on
Get
it.
you a
were
big
like,
old-
This is a sword stick. Like this thing is.
Yeah.
Get you a big old
awesome,
log
you know?
for a bazooka.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know,
Oh, one of my
Yeah.
boys is big on sticks. He's got a pile of them behind our unit,
Yeah.
our central unit, and he gets tore up if somebody gets his sticks.
It's like even the rocks in our driveway the kids
Yeah.
collect. And
Grenade!
Find, yeah. And then we
Frag
have
out.
a tornado shelter in the property. So they go in there. Like they're so creative. They are always doing something. Sometimes I'll look out in the front pasture and they're rolling around in the grass or picking grass for the pigs. I mean,
Yeah.
they're just out. It's like, it's funny because sometimes they'll give me such a hard time about making them go outside. Dad, it's hot. It's this or that. You know, when we're in Florida and the sun's literally 2 inches from you down there because it's unbelievably hot sometimes. They'll be outside and playing all the time.
Yeah.
But then we come home, it's not quite as hot, but it's still really hot.
Yeah.
Oh, it's too hot. I don't want to go out. And so we're like, when we're in Florida, you do. So I guess we don't need to go to Florida because it's too hot. Oh, no. And then they go outside. But sometimes it's a struggle to get them to go outside. But then once they get outside, it's hard to get them back in the house.
Yep.
It's like,
Once they
come
get
on.
started playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's it. Even our oldest, she's tries to find a way to stay inside. And yesterday she kept trying to meander her way off to her bedroom after I've already told everybody, you guys need to go outside and play. And I'm like, Lila, where are you going? Oh, I was going to go do this. And I say, okay, well, do this real quick. Then she do that. Hey, Lila, where are you going again? Well, I'm going this way. I said, well, we got some stuff that me and Mom, we're working around the house doing some things. So, being that you don't have anything going on, you can do the dishes. Dishes need to get done, or you can go outside and play.
Yeah.
So you're not just going to go into your room and sit around and do nothing. You're either going to help us in the house, or you're going to go outside and play like we've told everybody to do. And next thing you know, you hear the door close. Autumn's like, well, that worked. That's all you had to say was clean the dishes. But, then she gets outside and they find something to do. And sometimes, like, we can't find them. And next thing you know, they'll come up to the house. Where were you guys? Oh, we were on the back end of the property by the creek playing. I'm like, okay. I mean,
Gemma caught another rattlesnake.
Yeah.
no, we've hopefully solved that problem. But
For me,
and I
maybe
do.
it was for you. I was just thinking that had to be such a scary and prideful. moment
Proud.
as a
Yeah, that's
father.
what I was
I
like.
love
You need to never do that again, and I'm so proud of you.
Gemma is
Don't do that.
unbelievable with
That
bugs
was
and animals.
awesome.
Yeah. Like she's tried to save a chipmunk before and it bit her. And she's like, I was trying to save this chipmunk and it bit me, but I felt bad because I didn't want it to die because the cat got it. I'm like, whatever.
Well, now you're going to turn into a chipmunk.
Yeah, now you're a
I
chipmunk.
have a chipmunk. What are we going to do
And
now?
what's
Instead of
that get
Spider-Man,
you?
you're Chipmunk Girl.
What did that get you?
But
She just leaves
encouraging.
smaller and get
She
bigger
really
teeth.
catch a
That's all that
snake.
happened.
Yeah, I think I've told this story on a podcast before. She
I must
maybe
not have
not.
been there.
She one day me and Autumn were standing in the kitchen talking. Gemma comes running in the house. And this is when we were kind of first starting to work with them, being respectful of our conversations. Dad, come check this out. I gotta show you something. I'm like, Gemma, Grace, right now me and your mother are talking. You're gonna be quiet. And Autumn's like, babe, when she says it like that, you might just need to go check it out because it's probably something serious. She's like, Dad, you're going to be so mad. Come check this out. You're going to be so mad at me. So I'm like, what kind of kid comes
I
and says,
slaughtered
"Dad,
all the
you're
chickens,
gonna be-"
Dad.
Oh, I would have been mad. So I go out and Autumn's like, babe, get out there now. I'm like, okay. So I go out. She's like, Dad, check this out. You're going to be so mad. And she's laughing. I'm like, that's the weirdest thing to say from a kid. But I'm like, okay. And there's a bucket. So, of course,
Slipped into madness.
I see the bucket and I'm thinking, oh, God, I hope it's not a snake. Like, I feel like that's what it is. But I'm like, at the same time, I'm like, it's probably something else. I don't know. So I go over there. She's like, check this out, Dad. You're going to be so mad. And she takes a stick and she's poking around in there. I'm like, Gemma Grace, what are you doing messing with these snakes?
I'm a snake.
And I'm like, what's that?
I'm a little
So-
sneaky snake.
It was a stick of snake.
I'm
So
lost.
we looked
Never
at
seen that
it.
video?
No.
I didn't get that either.
I will show you guys this video.
Oh, Lord.
Culturist.
Nah, this is like early 2000s.
So either way, come to find out it's a pygmy rattlesnake. And I'm like, Gemma, if this snake was to bite you, you'd be going to the hospital right
You need to
now.
get her a YouTube channel of like picking up bugs and like
We've tried to do that, and she wants to do that. But the
I'll
problem
edit your
is,
videos for you.
The problem is, I said, well, I'll try to edit it. And
See, that was your first mistake. Send it to me and I'll edit it.
I know, but good grief, you're going to be full-time just editing podcasts and video and everything if we were to do all these things. You'll have to
It really doesn't
get on
take
payroll.
that long.
But
Payroll fine.
I mean, yes.
I need
it's
the
much
extra
harder
income
than
for-
you think about
Yeah.
it.
well, and I've done a couple. I've edited a couple YouTube videos for myself, and I just it doesn't matter either way. We've tried to do the YouTube thing, and we'll get there eventually. She really wants to do something like that. She watches that Coyote Peterson guy.
Oh, yeah, I
and
like watching that
Loves that, and she wants
Yeah.
to do that kind of.
He's
stuff.
an
And I
idiot,
said,
but
"Dude."
I like watching
Yeah.
it. It's like, I'm going to let this this giant wasp bite me right here on the arm, and you're gonna get a live reaction. That's what he does. Like, he just lets these insects bite him. I'm like, you go, dude.
Yeah. More
Anything
power
for
to
the
you,
views,
homie.
you know?
So either way, I said, Gemma, now I have to kill this snake. Oh, Dad. I'm like, look, it's a rattlesnake. Like,
How did she catch it?
she scooped it up in a bucket.
Like she did, like Steve Irwin style.
Like, took a
grab
stick.
it by the tail and drag it around.
No, she didn't do that. She took
Crack it like a
stick
whip.
in a bucket and just scooped it in. Because they'll go. So Gemma, when she goes outside, she's digging through stuff. And I do get worried that she's going to come across a snake or something. I mean, I do worry about that. And so I try to somewhat pay attention to what they're doing. But, you know, she knows kind of what to look for and what not to look for. But something I learned, too, is I've always thought that rattlesnakes were super aggressive, but they're really not.
Yeah.
I think they
If
get a
you-
bad rap. Actually, like they're
Actually pretty nice guys.
I have one as a best friend. It's okay.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, if a snake is going to try to kill me, I would much rather it go, you know, and
Yeah.
rattle its loud noise maraca tail.
Get away,
you know,
get away.
first
Well, really-
and tell me, like, hey, I'm about to kill you, than the one
Yeah.
that's just like, oh, by the way, I just bit you. You know, you're
Then the
Yeah.
python wrapping around.
Yeah,
you,
well,
trying to
you know, what I
suffocate
found,
you.
though, I say that because I've always assumed that they're super aggressive and they'll, like, come after you kind of thing. But really, they're just protecting
Nah, yeah.
themselves
Yeah.
and their territory. Like, that snake, even when I started going in there and poking around, she had leaves and stuff in there, and I had to move it around to really see what kind of snake it is. Not one time did it show any aggression. It was just kind of like, leave me alone.
What kind of rattlesnake? Did you
It was
say
a
this
pygmy
was?
rattlesnake.
What is that?
Just a small rattlesnake. I don't know.
Pygmy?
Pygmy.
I've never heard of that.
Pygmy rattler.
Have you
So-
ever heard of that?
Well, it was like the other day I was working.
Gemma taught me about them.
Yeah, the other day I was working out in Spruce Pine doing some
The
bush
like
hogging.
gray and black one right there. Oh, like that.
Yeah, something like that probably. I don't know. It was small. I don't think they get super huge either. That's I guess what's pygmy
I was
rattlesnake.
about to say, yeah, pygmy.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
It's-
Just means little.
Yeah, but either way, so I was moving a bunch of logs for a guy. They had a big tree cut down, had a bunch of big logs, so I was moving logs, and a big old timber rattler come out. But you know what he did? I mean, I'm right on the tractor right there, and he just meanders his way into another spot.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't aggressive like I've always thought.
Yeah.
Not saying, hey, let's go out and just dig up snakes and try to harass them, but
I have either.
I always thought that they were super aggressive. And in Florida, I've killed a pygmy rattlesnake before. That was on a golf course. I used to work on a golf course when I was 15, 16, or 16, 17.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
16, 17. And, you know, I worked on equipment, but I also, like, in the mornings, I have to go out and mow and clean the sand traps, do all those things and first thing in the morning. But I come across a pygmy rattlesnake. I killed it. And I'm like, oh, why'd you do that for? I'm like, because it's a freaking rattlesnake. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's a snake, I kill it. I don't really care.
Yeah.
I got grief for killing a king snake that was eating my chickens. It's like the stupid thing was eating my
Oh, yeah.
chickens.
You don't kill a king snake.
Well, I did.
You don't do that.
I did, and guess what?
That's
If
why
I
you
see
got-
another king
that's why you
snake,
got rattlesnakes now.
listen.
That's your fault.
You've unleashed the curse
Listen.
of the king snake.
Bad
You realize
le-
what you
The
did?
rattlesnakes,
Bad leadership.
the rattlesnakes
You
have
have
been
failed.
The rattlesnakes have been there, but when it's eating my chickens, it's gonna die. I don't care if it's a rainbow unicorn snake; it's dead.
Oh, you ain't seen one of those?
I'm just saying, I don't. If I see another king snake, now I've seen rat snakes and stuff on my property, and I leave them alone. But if it was in my coop, it had already eaten 2 or 3 of my chicks and several eggs, I don't care if how many feelings I hurt, how many people I offend. It'll
So
die.
There's chickens,
and if I could
chicken
do
snakes
it,
and king snakes.
if I could do it
eggs?
again,
I'm
it
much
would
of
be
a
dead.
snake guy, but king snakes are usually black,
Black.
and white,
Yeah,
and they're huge.
yeah. This thing was like 5.5,
But
6 foot long.
Yeah,
It's
but
huge.
they keep away poisonous.
Yeah.
and they eat your livestock.
We used to
I
have
guess
some-
I can give you a pass for
Oh,
eating
well,
the chickens.
Brett,
You
thank
could've moved
you.
it, though.
You're supposed to lead
could've
with love,
moved.
Jared.
Yeah.
That's what you should have
Yeah,
done
I
with
did
that
move
snake.
it. I moved it off to heaven, so now I can eat bad snakes. I don't know.
You
I-
should have instructed it on how poor its attitude was and
Listen
how
here,
bad
guy.
its behavior was.
You should
Yeah,
have.
And
spank its butt and
taught
tell
it,
it
yeah,
to go to its
right.
room.
Right. You
taught
should
it
have
through loving
chastised it.
leadership that it was in the wrong. Okay, and
Yeah.
Sat it down. You know, had a
Give it some
one-on-one
Bible
meeting.
verses on correction.
That's right.
you're like,
This
look,
is what happened to the serpent in the Bible. So, is this what you want? No, it's dead.
Don't let it happen again.
And I
See
will.
the serpent in the Bible? All right, the chickens are the forbidden fruit. Okay,
Yes.
eat that. Okay.
Now we used to have some massive
Yes.
rattlesnakes back in Georgia. There's we had my stepdad. He owned a farm, and they had this one old cabin, I guess, where his grandfather or somebody lived there a long time ago, and there would always be massive rattlesnakes under this. I remember one time it had been like 5 or 6 feet long, but that thing was like that fat because it was just eating these massive field rats.
Yeah.
They were huge, but yeah, they were.
Well, and that's the
Have y'all
thing.
seen many cottonmouths?
I've come across one. Me and my buddy were going fishing right when I moved to the Hamilton area. We'd always pull off on the side of the road and go down into these little creeks and stuff. Where I went off to take a whiz. I was just sitting there, and all of a sudden I heard something like just. Shh. I looked, and like right there from me to that wall, one had just slid right there and just stopped. So I just kind of finishing my business, looking at it, and I just walked away.
I probably would have peed all over myself running away.
I aimed it directly at his head.
Only about that long.
Yeah.
But I mean, they'll be as big as my forearm.
Wow.
Snake on snake violence.
Yeah, I've only seen one when we were out on Bear Creek, and it felt like one of the rock piles somewhere. There's like holes, deep holes in some of the rocks, and it was like down in there. But other than that, I
Yes.
haven't really dealt with cottonmouths. But I don't care.
You
Snakes.
didn't catch what he said.
Me and Brett are talking because you guys are talking about what are you saying?
You can catch it later.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll listen to the podcast.
You have
And
to listen
listen.
to
Yeah.
your own episode.
How far are we into this?
We are
know.
2 hours and 5
I
minutes.
think we've got off topic.
We did. and
We're just having fun now.
yeah, we're having fun. But I think we covered some good parts of
Yep.
being a good leader. Like you have to humble yourself down, to not be a dictator. And not everything has to always go your way. Leadership entails sacrificing yourself and your wants and needs sometimes for the betterment of others. But you also have to have, what do you say? Like that sense of authority too in the house. You know, people have to understand like you are the head, and there are final decisions that you make that they're going to have to deal with. But you have to do it out of love
You're doing it out of wisdom and love.
and wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And sometimes you have to be stern with it.
yeah.
You know,
And it doesn't mean you always get it
realize that
right.
This is what's best for you.
Yeah, because our job is to teach our kids. I heard a long time ago that, it's not our job to be our kids' best friend. That's
Right.
not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be teaching them and raising them to become good adults when they get older. And I agree with that. Like, and I've had to tell my kid, I ain't your best friend. So you ain't gonna be talking to me like that. This is what needs to happen.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, and it's kind of a weird thing to say to your kid because you want to be friends, you want to have fun, but.
You also want them to be comfortable enough when we get. I know none of us are there yet, but when we get into teenage years,
Yeah.
this is something that I want so bad, especially for my daughter, that if she gets in a situation to where she's, let's say, drinking and driving, or she's in a back seat with a boy somewhere where she don't need to be. I don't want her to be so afraid that she's going to get in trouble with me that she can't call me.
Right.
Yeah.
I want
Gotta be a
her to call
relationship
me.
of trust.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's something we've tried to work on with our kids too, because I have daughters. And one thing that we've learned too is we don't let our kids do sleepovers
Yeah.
because of,
You just can never really trust.
dude, you don't know who to trust. And
Right.
you could think super highly of these people. And next thing you know, your kid's coming home saying, well, this happened or that happened.
Yeah.
Wait a second. So we don't do the sleepover thing. And it's not an offense against our friends or anybody else, but if we make exceptions here and there, then it's, well, why about this? Why not that? And then let's just say you make exceptions for some of your friends, but some of your other friends that maybe their partner is a little sketchy or something, but you don't let your kids stay there, but they see that you let your kids stay somewhere else. Well, now they've taken offense and get mad at you. So it's just easier on that sense to
just
you don't stay anywhere.
Yeah,
Period.
negative.
The only people's house they're allowed to stay the night at is my parents' house.
Yep.
Or my wife's parents' house. But I mean they don't because they're in Florida. But because it's our job as a leader in our house to protect our children and listen to them. I've heard of many instances where as people became adults are like, we told our mom that we weren't comfortable around, or told my dad we weren't comfortable around so and so, and they're like, oh well, he ain't, knowing the person, they think they know the person really well, and it's, oh well, they ain't gonna do nothing. That's a little crazy. Kids making stuff up, and then they continually put that kid in that situation to find out that as they're adults, these things did happen.
Yeah.
And now you have a trauma on your hands with your kid, not only from what that person did to them, but you didn't trust them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they also get to a point where they don't even want to talk to you about these things because you're not going to trust me anyways. So it's important to listen to what your kids are saying when it comes to being around people. Kids, they say dogs are good judges of character. And, if a dog don't like somebody, they're going to be barking at them, giving them a hard time, and won't ease up. Where they sense that you're a decent person. And I don't know how accurate that all is, but if your kids are really uncomfortable, you need to think about that and be like, why? And maybe entertain it and just maybe look into it, but listen to how your kids feel about being around certain people.
Yeah, and also don't make them feel like they have to like and trust somebody that they don't, because we've even taken that as far as like not making our kids hug and kiss somebody when we're telling them bye, even close family and stuff. It's like, because I've seen it happen with plenty of family and stuff. It'd be like, well, tell them bye. No, give them a bye hug. Tell them bye. Tell them bye. Give them a hug and stuff. And they make them. And I'm like, no, if the kid doesn't want to give me a hug, then don't make the kid. Don't make the kid come over here and hug me. And I'm not going to make my kid, even if it's a grandparent. I'm not going to make them hug and kiss them goodbye when they don't want to. And one of the things is, I don't want them to associate forced affection being a thing that they associate with their grandparent. That you made me do this, and like we did that forever. And like, for instance, Asher is not a hugger and stuff.
Yeah,
he went 3 years. Which of course part of like a year and a half of that, he was an infant that wouldn't know how to do any of that anyway. But it was like literally, he was almost 4 years old. Really, the first time he ran to my mom and hugged her.
Wow.
They call her Kit Kat, ran in Kit Kat and gave her a hug. And it just meant that it was a huge deal to my mom. It meant so much to her and stuff, because he just doesn't normally do that. Normally after he's there for a while, he'll give her the goodbye hug and stuff, But as far as seeing her and just wanting to immediately be like, yeah, I know her, I love her, and her and stuff like that just happened. And it meant a lot and stuff, and it's like, I don't know if we had just forced him to every time, be like, no, you tell her hello and you give her a hug. If he would have ever got there, if he would have ever been comfortable with it, or if he would have just done it because he had to, and so
along those
make kids
lines,
feel like, oh, they have to show affection, they have to, hug somebody when they don't want to. It's like, well, they might have a reason for it, and even if they don't, they're not comfortable with it. So don't make anyone feel like they have to be physically affectionate when they shouldn't.
Yeah,
because then what if later on in life somebody wants to be physically affectionate with them and tries to force that on them, and now they think like, oh, okay, well, I have to do this. No is not an option.
Yeah.
Along those lines, with other adults, this is something that I've thought about, and I hadn't really crossed this bridge with my kids, but is it okay to be defiant to another adult?
That's a hard one, because
Have
you
y'all
want
thought about that?
Well, yeah, because it's like you want them to be. Well, they said to do this, you better do it. And I know I've said that. Like, well, you were told to do this. You need to be obedient. You need to be respectful to whoever it is. But that's such a good point.
You see where I'm headed with this, right?
I absolutely do see where you're headed with this, because now you create this blind obedience where, because it's an adult, I have to do it no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you draw the fine line?
How do you get them to know the different situations where it is okay to tell an adult no, and before they are mature enough to recognize that, is it always okay to tell an adult, maybe not your parents, or in some cases, things can happen with grandparents and stuff.
Yeah.
But
It's such a
That's
tough
a-
thing because
that's
it's very situational,
Yeah.
you know, and the only rule that I can think of that we really came up with on that is that you listen to adults, but like one of the things we've always told, yeah, and you always be respectful to adults, but like one of the things, like our daughter's really the only one old enough to understand that. But we told them that, you know, you never, if anyone ever tells you that you can't tell mommy and daddy something, that's
Yeah, that's
that's
a good point.
a big no.
Good point.
Like
Yeah.
if anyone, like you immediately tell mommy and daddy.
Mhm.
If anyone ever says, "Don't tell your mommy and daddy about this,"
You immediately tell them.
tell us.
Yeah.
Like that is someone who is wanting to hurt you.
Yeah.
That nothing good is coming from that situation, regardless of what it is. If it's another kid, even if they're just trying to not get in trouble, you know, it's like because that'll start with kids. Just they broke the lamp or something.
Yeah.
It's like don't tell don't tell your mom and dad
Yeah.
that this happened. It's like, well, that's already trying to get you in a mode of lying and covering up something, even if it's as simple as just we broke a lamp, you know, broke a dish or something. You know, that little simple lie turns into, oh, well, now when we do something that had a bad result, we cover it up and hide it from mommy and daddy. And how much worse when it's an adult, you know. So never, if it's an adult that tells you don't tell your mom and dad, red flag.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those sticky situations like that, those really bother me.
Yeah.
And so kind of like that is really great point. And in fact, I may go home and tell my kids that today. But I've wondered how you kind of navigate that, and my mom went to where if it feels wrong, then just politely say no, come tell us about it. That that
like
kind of thing.
That feels wrong. Let me go ask my mom and dad about that. You know.
So I don't know, but I mean, we live in a messed up world, man.
Yeah.
We really do.
And it's tough to get kids to understand even that they're in like kids often won't even understand that they're in a situation like that.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, with you saying that, like, I wonder too the importance of building such a positive, healthy environment around the kids and them seeing that constantly when they're presented with something that's not right. I mean, I guess it depends on how old.
Like they recognize it.
They recognize like this isn't normal. Like this isn't something that dad and mom ever do, or
like they know what good and healthy is, and so when bad and unhealthy shows up, they're like, okay,
something's not right here.
Yeah. So, I wonder if, and that, I guess it's just me kind of verbal processing in the sense that if they're being raised around a healthy environment of the do's and I guess more do's, like I'm not going to go hang out in the bathroom with my kid when they're taking a bath. So if they're somewhere where the guy's trying to make sure he's in the bathroom, like they need to understand it. We need to not, or that the guy goes in when they're going potty or something. Like if my kids are doing stuff in the bathroom, I'm like, close the door. Like, what are you doing? Like and that's subconsciously like I don't need to see that. I mean, I'm not wiping butts anymore, so I don't need to see that. Now, if they're in a tub and something's happened, obviously I have to be there, but I'm not making a point to be around my kids around like that. So that's building a pattern of there's no reason for a man to be around me when I'm in this state. Bathroom, potty, changing my clothes, any of that. So now when someone wants to, because let's face the facts, that's our fear. That's my fear of not letting my kids stay somewhere. I'm not as fearful of physical abuse in the sense of like hitting or being yelled at or cussed at as much as I don't want somebody messing with my kid. I don't want my daughters to be a statistic of pedophilia. Let's just face the facts. That's what it is. So building a healthy environment around dad's never around when these specific things are happening. Typically mom will deal with some things, and once again, I'm obviously their father and I have to, in a certain circumstance, have to do something. But typically it's close the door and what are you doing? You don't need to be out like this. So we kind of make it clear that, you don't go out in the middle of the living room and change your clothes. Like you go in your bedroom or in the bathroom and change your clothes. Or obviously if you're going potty, it needs to be in the bathroom. If you're trying to go in the living room, that's a problem. But I'm just saying, building that kind of thought process in their head that dad's not around for these. So if this guy is trying to be around for this, something's wrong and I need to.
Yeah.
No, what do you like? And they'll be like, get out of here, or whatever.
Yeah.
So I just wonder, if we kind of make a point, and maybe you don't have to. I mean, I don't think about it. I just naturally am like, dude, close the door. I don't want to see that or whatever. But
That's that leading by example. You're starting
Yeah.
right there to where your kids are raised in that culture of understanding what is appropriate and what's inappropriate.
Yeah.
What's decent and indecent,
But
and
if-
it takes a while to get your kids to that because, like, my daughter's 8 and, like, she's still in that process of learning that, like, she's getting older now. And it's like, well, you need to, put on, even though you're at home and it's just your family around, it's
Yeah.
like, well, you got 2 little brothers and you got your daddy and you need to be wearing a shirt. You know? It's like,
Yeah.
you need-
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard with little girls because little kids, they just want to run around. All little kids want to run around in their
That
underwear.
was-
That's
all
Eloise.
that was Remy.
When Eloise is about, like, when we're just at home, she'll just go underwear and just lay on the couch and watch TV because
Yeah.
she sees. I mean, that's most of the time what I do. I'll just have like my shorts on or something and just walk around the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like,
Yeah,
I'm
'cause
gonna
we're
get comfortable too.
guys.
yeah.
Yeah. So Remy the other day, up until she was probably 3.5 or something, like her nickname was Hillbilly. Like she wouldn't even respond to Remy. It was like, Remy, come here, Remy, nothing. It's like, Hillbilly, get over here. And she'd come running. And because she was just a little hillbilly. But the other day she was standing in the kitchen. She's like, see, Dad, I'm just like you. And she's standing there in jeans and no shirt. And I'm like, what do you mean you're just like me? She's like, I don't have a shirt on. I'm just like you. I'm like, you're such a hillbilly. Like, put a shirt on. And she just starts laughing. I'm like, babe, you're a little girl. You need to go put a shirt on. And
you get stuff like that.
and
that's
it's
wholesome.
innocent and
Yeah.
cute. Yeah. So we kind of had to say, like, you probably should have a shirt on. And she went and put one on. But she's like, I'm like you, Dad. Do you have your shirt off? And of course, I had a shirt on. So I'm like, you're not really like me because I have a shirt on right now. Okay. But it was cute and funny.
Yeah.
So I think it's okay for allowing some of these things in your home. Like something like that. I mean, she's 5 years old.
Well, it's as
Yeah.
they get older, and stuff. It's like where they
Yeah.
start to
Now, my
learn
oldest isn't going to do
those
that.
types of things.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What my
And I would
worry
be
is,
very disturbed.
my worry is that submissiveness to adults and showing respect and stuff would overpower that feeling of something's not right with this.
Yeah.
That would be my main worry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's that cultivating, like, with your kids, like, if they're old enough to understand that I respect mommy and daddy and listen to them, then they're old enough to be learning other things that are right and wrong too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, if they understand that disobeying mom and dad is wrong, then they also can understand other things that are wrong. And so you just kind of start teaching them, like, you don't let somebody do this to you.
Yeah.
You don't let, you don't listen to somebody. And it's one of those things too, where it's like, you don't listen to people. And usually it's other kids, other kids will tell you to do something that is wrong.
Yeah.
Like, you
Yeah.
don't listen to other kids when they tell you to do something you would get in trouble for.
Mhm.
And that also applies for adults. That you don't listen to anyone if they tell you to do something you would get in trouble for.
Yeah.
If someone wants you to do something that you don't want mommy and daddy to know about, then it's just wrong.
Yeah.
Or whether that's you and the kids are breaking some rules and you're stealing some snacks out of something
Yeah.
you shouldn't be stealing out of, or it's an adult telling you to do something really, really wrong.
Yeah.
That it's, you don't do a thing that would get you in trouble with mom and dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with the staying overnight thing, we have let them stay over at a couple different friends' houses before. And it was nerve wracking. And it was a while back. We really got strong on that you're not staying anywhere in the last few years, whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess we've always kind of had the stance, but we have made exceptions, and it was very uncomfortable. And so we're just like, we just can't. Like, we just don't want that risk. But one thing that we did do with those times was, hey, feel them out. What'd you guys do? What was there any, in a roundabout way, ask questions that they would be easily answered, but would also give you insight into any weird activity that may or may not have happened.
Yeah.
Just to know, because if you just straight out say, hey, when you were staying the night, did so-and-so mess with you? Like, they're going to be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
if
you
you
can do
ask,
things like for instance, if there's a man in that household and
Yeah.
stuff, you can ask, like, just like, hey, we'll just throw a name out there. Was Mr. Wilson, was he fun? Did he, did he laugh with y'all and stuff? Was, did he enjoy y'all coming over and stuff? And if there's any kind of like a, weird, like, when you mention Mr. Wilson, if they get uncomfortable, like they may give you some kind of weird answer or something, you can kind of piece together some clues.
Yeah. So B.
Boy,
sorry if there's any Mr. Wilsons. I mean nothing by it.
I know a few of them. Mr. Will.
But yeah, so the point is, this is part of your leadership role.
a very important part.
Extremely, and I guess you don't always think about the amount of things that really comes into leading a household, especially with kids.
Mm-hmm.
You just think, oh, well, I got to go out, I got to make my money, pay the bills, and to make sure there's food on the table for my kids. And really, I'm done. But dude, there's so much more that we don't necessarily think about. And especially in the times that we live in, for me, protecting our kids at all costs, I would rather be looked at as weird, because we've had people, oh, you don't let your kids spend the night. No, because I don't want to become a statistic. I don't want my kids to now grow up with that in their life, because it messes people up. And I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to do everything that I can to protect them. So as a leader, I'm a protector. Man, that's so important. So
yeah, because like you said, there's much more important things than just like going to work. And providing for them.
That's surface level stuff.
Yeah,
it is.
Like that's the absolute base level thing. There is like to make sure your kids have food and shelter. That's just survival stuff. But the real leadership of your kids is that protecting them. And because what we're talking about is like we are talking about physical protection, but it's like a bully can come up and thump my kid's ear, and that hurt my kid's ear, but what we're more worried about is their spiritual protection, because the kind of stuff we're talking, like thing that might go wrong at a sleepover, is stuff that affects their soul, stuff that affects their spirit forever. Just the same way that if a bully tormented them over and over again all throughout their childhood, and even if it was just ear flicking or pushing them down or something like that, can have this psychological effect that torments their spirit going into forever to come, and that can affect their whole life. So what we don't want is for that to happen. And we don't want something to happen to them when they're younger that just sticks with them through their whole life that they never do get over. We want them to have some wisdom and some resilience to avoid those situations. And that's our job as fathers, to protect them. And I think that means also not living in fear. Because I don't think.
So what's that healthy balance?
Yeah, exactly. Because you can't. Because there's plenty. I'd say probably majority of families let their kids go spend the night somewhere.
We've been looked at weird for not allowing our kids.
Yeah, and it's not that that you live in fear and say that I got to put my kid in a bubble and I can't ever let them have this and have that. It's like Brett, like you hit on that earlier talking, or it may have been Blake. Yeah, Blake, you were talking about like not saying no and stop so much, and everything. It's like, let them do something that's a little risky and dangerous. Because you did when you were a kid, and you're better for it, and stuff. It's like you went and climbed some trees and got out on some branches you shouldn't have.
That's good for them.
It was actually.
Well, that's why I enjoy my kids going out in the woods and playing and just exploring and discovering.
Absolutely.
And though I don't want them playing with rattlesnakes, like she was okay, thank God. And we showed her the importance of not doing that.
Like somebody might listen to that and be like, he doesn't even let kids go spend the night somewhere. Our kids have never spent the night anywhere other than we had when Asher was born. Lael stayed the night with a grandparent because we were it was in the middle of COVID.
I let my kids stay the night at Grandpa's.
She wasn't even allowed to stay in the hospital with us because of COVID at the time. He was born in 2020, and then when Judah was born, Lael and Asher stayed with grandparent. That's the only time they've stayed somewhere. So we're right there with you.
Yeah.
But somebody might be listening and think, that's just sheltering. That's putting them in a bubble. Well, no. First of all,
it's our job to protect our kids.
You have to do what you think is best as a parent to protect your kids, and use your wisdom and stuff, because they're like you said, you let them stay with grandparents.
I do let them stay with my dad.
Places that it's like you trust, and there may be somebody else that comes along at some point in time where you say, you know what, the situation warrants it. I think it's okay. I trust this other people.
Yeah.
You know, like you're willing to adapt as you grow, but you're not sheltering your kids because you don't let them stay somewhere. Your kids are allowed to explore and push the boundaries in other areas of their life
Yeah.
that are less risky spiritually. You know, like, yeah, maybe a kid, you know, falls out of a tree and you have to deal with like, oh, well, we may have a broken arm here or something
Yeah.
like that. But I don't have to worry about Mr. Wilson. Once again, sorry, Mr. Wilson.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You know, the risk, the likelihood that it's going to happen is actually a lot higher of what you're talking about is falling out of a tree or something.
Yeah.
You know, when you're out in the woods or whatever, the likelihood that something like that would happen is a lot higher than something happened to them if they go spend the night somewhere, but the consequences are far greater, you
Yeah,
know, not even
absolutely.
comparable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So it's not, you know, those things that they get hurt out in the woods, whatever, scraped knees, broke arms, whatever.
Snake bit.
Snake bits getting.
What they say is like 50 grand for a vial of antivenom.
Really?
I think I've looked it up before, and it was like either.
But anyway,
It's over
that's the-
$10,000.
And it's not like I just let
You
my
know.
kids roam everywhere and I don't ever go and check on them. Like
Right.
I do check on them and stuff, but
But you
they
know,
get to
like
go
a
out and
broke
play and have
arm-
fun.
A broke arm is going to heal in what
6 weeks.
six
Yeah.
6 weeks. So
I don't know.
so a broke arm heals in 6 weeks. It may take you may never heal from.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, if you do, it's going to be a long, you know, hard.
It's going to be
road.
like giving it over to God and
Therapy,
letting him
yeah.
heal it.
Yeah.
But
That's the thing. The pain you're going to feel through something like that could be a lifetime.
Yeah.
Where the pain of a broken bone or sprained arm or whatever is extremely temporary, and that's it. Like it's done and over with. You learned a valuable lesson
Yep.
on doing whatever you were doing, and you move on. But in the other situation, you're learning not to trust anybody at this point. Now you just straight up don't trust nobody,
Yeah.
and now you're broken and hurt
Yep.
because of how you were treated, and then it plays out in your life
Mhm.
a lot of times in a very bad way.
and I think
Yeah.
this could probably be a whole different episode.
Yeah.
Oh, we're coming
but
up on the
things-
time where we need
Yeah,
to
we
do
had
a whole
about 2.5 hours.
Oh, gee. Yeah, we'll probably have to break this down a couple.
And
Again.
I think that one of the reasons, like, and it's becoming more common for kids to get abused and stuff these days too. And this
Reckon
is what I'm
why
saying.
that
Could be
is.
a whole different episode. And it's because it's a thing that men need to know about and need to talk about and be open about is the prevalence of pornography.
Yep, that's where I was
And
headed.
how
Okay.
poisonous it is to a man's mind that will take men that maybe normally wouldn't do something like that, do something so terrible to, say, a kid or even another adult, but then their mind gets so infected because of the prevalence and just pushing of pornography that it actually damages your brain in such a way that it takes away that thing that would stop you,
Mhm.
and you just push through the barrier and go ahead and do it anyway.
Yeah, I listened to a podcast about that. It's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Let's
Numbers are
do we want to make this episode 14 or 15, whatever it is? the
Yeah,
next
we
one?
could make that a whole different episode.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay,
let's-
let's call it on the
I
leadership.
mean, I don't
here
know.
and
I don't.
summarize if you want to on the leadership. And
So yeah, I mean, well, honestly, I mean that's a continuation of leadership. I think the leadership conversation is going to be a lot more than what we can sum up in a podcast because there's so many aspects, so many different things to it. But so kind of going over kind of what we discussed to start with is, lead through humility, lead through.
Those would be the attributes of a
Yeah.
of a good leader's humility. I wish I would have brought. I had a book where I've done a kind of a deep dive on being a good leader. But a good leader is humble. He's responsible. He is compassionate, and he has a vision. And I think there's two more that I can't remember. but all the, we covered most of that. You know, the ones that are missed the most is selflessness. That is that one's missed a whole bunch, especially in the corporate world and politics, which I don't know.
Yeah, politics is so screwed up
so
now
messed up.
That's a whole nother.
And the compassion, that is rarely seen in leaders these days. But we're talking about being leaders in the home, which
because leadership abroad, I think, starts in the home. If the parenting is done right, even a leader as he becomes an adult. And starts leading a business or leading even in small communities or bigger communities, in City Hall or whatever. I think that the behaviors that they were taught can also play out in greater things. Mm-hmm. So I think it starting in the home is so important, because I was told one time, how do you expect someone to show love, for instance, if they've never been taught love? If the only thing that they've seen love is abuse or anything like that. And it was like, that makes sense. Now, as an adult, you kind of realize this is how I grew up, but I see other people doing things differently and I need to change. So you have to, as an adult, you have to want to change, because, you can't help but see a lot of different, love. So the willingness to learn, realize your faults, and grow from them is so important, and really getting grounded in the Word is super, super important for good leadership.
For everything.
So yeah, I feel like we covered a wide array, and I think we're going to do the next podcast on some other areas that we can cover under being a good leader, because I didn't even think about the pornography conversation that you brought up, Larry. But that does. The things that we allow in our lives is vital to how things play out in our household and our kids see. So let's finish this one up, and I feel like we did pretty good on that. I feel like we covered a lot of ground, and we had a good time. We got a little deep on some of this, but it's something that's so important to me, especially. I want to be the best possible leader I can in my house, and this is a start to that. So with that, we thank you guys, and we love you, and we out.
See you guys.
Thank you guys for listening. Check us out on Facebook or Instagram, and follow us so you can stay up to date with latest podcast drops and content. Also, feel free to leave us a review on whatever streaming platform you're listening from. We'll catch you next week.